And I feel like I am beating a dead horse, beating a dead horse with this because we've talked about it before. We've been talking about it for a year, but every time it happens, I bite into it. It just I believe, and that's Tee Higgins, the extension with the Bengals. Joe Burrow, after the Cowboys game, comes out. I don't know what inspired this because Tee Higgins didn't have a huge game at all or anything, but he comes out and he says, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that Tee Higgins gets extended. And Jamar Chase says the same thing, or says that, like, hey, yeah, Tee Higgins needs to get extended with me. So now we're talking about extending Trey Hendrickson and Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase while also trying to get some guards in the draft, probably. And then we also need to rebuild the defense because the defense sucks. But I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm frustrated by this, Stan, because this is exactly what he said last year. We have a video on the YouTube channel talking about this last year where Joe Burrow came out at a press conference and said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure Tee Higgins gets extended and that we can keep Jamar Chase too. In my mind, at this point, you have to, and this was my thoughts, I'm going to take you through the timeline of how this all went down. Joe Burrow says that, and my immediate reaction was, you said this last year. You have to go into the GM's office and say, I want to restructure my contract, give the money to Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase. Because I don't know that the Bengals are actually going to do it on their own. I think Joe Burrow is going to have to force them to do it. Maybe bring in the contract himself and just say, sign this and I'll sign it and we'll be good. Because I do think the Bengals are better with Tee Higgins on the field. Now, I have also argued in the past that, Tee Higgins might have an injury problem. And I still will hold to that. Best ability is availability. And if that's an issue, that's an issue. But the fact is, even if Tee Higgins doesn't have a big game, defenses still have to plan for him, and that opens up Jamar Chase. That opens up Andre Yoshibas. That opens up Mike Gesicki. It opens up, hopefully, Jermaine Burton in the future with whatever happens with him there. But Tee Higgins needs to be on the Bengals, I believe, for them to be the best group of themselves on offense. Because I think if Tee Higgins leaves this year, then you have to then go draft a wide receiver in the first or second round. And I don't really want to do that because I'd rather draft a defensive tackle or a cornerback or something like that, or a guard just to help us out. But then Tee Higgins does something I did not expect. I don't think anyone expected this. He changed his agent. Now, Stan, we've talked about David Mulugheta before in the past. I'm sure David Mulugheta is a nice guy. I do not like David Mulugheta as an agent because he's very good at his job. And he has hindered the Bengals' ability to keep stars before, and the Bengals hinder themselves by not giving large amounts of guaranteed money. David Mulugheta is very good at getting large amounts of guaranteed money, so that's kind of why it hasn't worked out. But now all of a sudden, Tee Higgins comes out, and he changes his agent. I don't know who he changed it to. And he says in an interview, money will come. Money's going to come just however it comes. Relationships are more important to me. That's pretty big. Is that big to you? Does that strike your ears?
Yeah, that's major. And, I think about Joe Burrow and where he's in his career, and I think about Tom Brady when he was in that same kind of spot of his career early on, right before we had all the accolades. Tom Brady was a very good quarterback who just wasn't able to make it work season after season. Right, it took him a few years before he only got he's only a perennial Super Bowl level quarterback towards the end of his career. And what did he do early on is he took pay cuts and he let his team sign better players and bigger players on both defense and offense. And the Bengals are in that position this year where you have a lot of really good stars, but you also have some parts of the field. I think the biggest one I'm looking at is the interior defensive line, where you just don't have starting level players who are able to show up and actually or a rotation that's able to make a difference. You don't have that. So people like Higgins and Jamar Chase even will have to take pay cuts at some point if this team is ever going to be able to bring together all the guys they need. It's very rare that a team will be able to just have the lucky things happen, like the 49ers stumbling across Brock Purdy, that allow them to sign big players in the offseason while keeping their stars. The Bengals did not get that, right? You got people who you knew were going to be major players that when you got them, with Jamar Chase, with Joe Burrow. So it's gonna be up to some of these guys to take some pay cuts for that to work. The Bengals are obviously very lucky to have Tee Higgins as one of those guys, and I hope Joe Burrow can take a similar approach and take maybe some contract extensions or pay cuts in some of those later years to allow them to sign guys like Chase and Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been this whole time. I've been on and Truss has been on me about this, but I've been on it's going to work out. Bengals we're gonna keep Tee Higgins around. We're gonna keep Jamar Chase around. I kind of moved on from Tee Higgins emotionally because I didn't think it was gonna happen, but now I'm all bought back in. That comment that relationships matter to me more than money, that's deep. And Joe Burrow, he's already got a Batmobile, so he has everything he needs, right? So. Maybe he takes a pay cut, maybe he doesn't, but I thought that was a very interesting comment that we heard from Tee Higgins. And I think like I said, if you can keep Tee Higgins, well, then I would extend Mike Gesicki because he's essentially another wide receiver 3 or tight end. Well, he is a tight end, but he's essentially another wide receiver 3. You've already got Eric All, who looked very good before his injury. I would move Ted Karras from center over to guard and then put Matt Lee in as center. See how that works out. Draft a guard and then sign a blue chip defensive tackle in free agency or just even a cornerback and then draft defense and get this scheme figured out. Because there are good players on defense, I believe. I believe that wholeheartedly. I have a very difficult time believing the entire defense just decided to suck all in 1 year. I think a lot of it comes down to that defensive line not putting pressure on, which hurts the cornerbacks, and the schemes just aren't working. You got to work on that. But hopefully keeping Tee Higgins, that helps us out a little bit. So let's not draw on that too much though until we've got some real meat to bite into with that story that's been going on for a year. Get it done, Duke Tobin. We got